The streets of Cebu were alive with the quiet hum of everyday life. Tricycles rattling down narrow alleys, street vendors calling out their wares, and children laughing as they kicked worn-out balls through the dust. Among these streets, 48 children, ranging in age from 7 to 15, carried within them a secret fire, a talent so raw, so beautiful, that even the most jaded of hearts would pause to admire it. Music had always been their sanctuary, a place where hunger, hardship, and heartbreak could be transformed into melody. But for these kids, life had offered very few stages and even fewer opportunities. Their journey began months earlier when a small community organization in Cebu had gathered them for weekly music workshops. Each child came with a story heavier than most adults could bear. Some had lost parents, others lived in makeshift homes, and a few had spent nights begging under the glow of flickering streetlights. Yet, there was laughter. There was hope. There was song. The children learned not only notes and harmonies but also resilience, compassion, and the unshakable belief that their voices could one day reach beyond the dusty streets of their neighborhood. When the opportunity to audition for America's Got Talent arrived, the news spread through the community like wildfire. At first, the idea seemed impossible. How could 48 children from Cebu, many of whom had never left the country, stand on an international stage? But with determination burning brighter than doubt, their families and teachers rallied behind them. Practicing became an all-consuming ritual. Every afternoon, they gathered in a small hall with cracked windows and worn wooden floors, rehearsing tirelessly. Their voices intertwined, building harmonies so perfect that even their instructors occasionally wept. They practiced not just singing but conveying emotion, pain, joy, hope, longing, all in one breath. The journey to Los Angeles was a blur of flights, bus rides, and endless rehearsals. When they finally arrived at the Grand AGT Theater, the sheer scale of the stage left many wide-eyed and trembling. The lights, the cameras, the roaring audience, it was overwhelming. But as they huddled together backstage, something extraordinary happened. A silent agreement passed through the group. They would sing not for the judges, not for the cameras, not even for the applause. They would sing for themselves, for their families, for every street they had walked barefoot on, for every meal they had gone without. When the curtains opened, the audience was greeted by a sea of youthful faces, standing shoulder to shoulder, radiating nervous excitement and unspoken determination. The children started their performance softly, a haunting melody that seemed to suspend time itself. Each note told a story of longing and resilience, their voices weaving together in a tapestry of sound that transcended language and nationality. As the song swelled, the energy in the theater shifted. People who had come expecting entertainment were instead confronted with raw, unfiltered emotion. Simon Cowell, usually a mask of indifference, sat frozen, eyes wide, as the children's harmonies enveloped the room. How could such young voices carry so much pain, hope, and beauty at once? Each chord seemed to touch something deep within the human soul. The children's performance wasn't just about technical skill, it was a narrative. There was the boy who had spent nights working in a small sorry store to support his younger siblings, now singing with a voice that seemed impossibly mature. There was the girl who had lost her mother to illness, yet found a motherly role among her peers, guiding the younger children through complex harmonies. There was the teenager who had struggled with literacy but could read music as though it were a universal language, translating life's struggles into soaring melodies. Cheers flowed freely throughout the audience. Judges who had seen thousands of acts in their careers struggled to maintain composure. How could a group so young, so small in number yet so powerful in presence, create something so monumental? It was a reminder that magic existed in unexpected places and that talent was not determined by circumstance. Halfway through the performance, the children began a choreographed moment, not with flashy moves or elaborate props, but with simple, synchronized gestures that accentuated the emotional peaks of their song. Their unity was palpable. The audience could feel it, the trust, the shared struggle, the collective heartbeat of 48 lives intertwined. For a brief moment, the stage ceased to be a stage. It became a bridge between the children's world and ours, spanning oceans and cultures, connecting hearts. The climax of the song arrived with a crescendo that seemed to lift the theater off its foundations. Every voice soared, every note carried the weight of hope and perseverance. Judges were openly crying, audience members were on their feet, applauding, weeping, some unable to speak, overcome by the sheer power of what they had witnessed. It wasn't just talent, it was testimony. It wasn't just music, it was life itself distilled into song. When the final note faded into silence, there was a heartbeat of absolute stillness. Then, as if released from a spell, the theater erupted. Applause thundered, whistles pierced the air, and cheers shook the rafters. The children, exhausted but glowing, held hands and bowed together, their smiles bright through tears. They had done more than perform. They had transformed despair into beauty, invisibility into recognition. Backstage, the reactions were overwhelming. Simon Cowell, known for his acerbic critiques, could barely speak. I don't know what to say, he admitted, voice thick with emotion. Sofia Vergara's hands trembled as she wiped tears from her face. Howie Mandel simply shook his head in disbelief. I've seen talent before, but this is something else entirely, he said, voice quivering. But the children did not let the praise define them. They knew what they had accomplished. The act of carrying their stories onto that stage, of singing not just for applause but for hope, for survival, for each other. They had created a moment that would linger long after the show ended, a reminder of the resilience of youth, the power of community, and the transcendent nature of music. The story of these 48 Filipino children would not end with one performance. Offers came pouring in, scholarships, mentorships, invitations to perform internationally. Yet, the children remained grounded, remembering the streets that had shaped them, the small hall in Cebu where they had practiced tirelessly, the families and neighbors who had believed in them when others had not. Their mission was no longer just survival, it was inspiration. Months later, back in Cebu, the children returned not as ordinary kids but as heroes, symbols of possibility. The streets that once seemed limiting now felt alive with promise. Children in the neighborhood looked at them with wide eyes, dreaming bigger than before. Teachers saw that dedication, even in the smallest of lives, could move mountains. And families, many of whom had struggled for years to make ends meet, felt a quiet pride that resonated beyond words. Their performance on AGT was more than a song, it was a movement. It reminded the world that talent is not measured by circumstance, that hope can thrive even in the harshest conditions, and that the human spirit, especially in children, can shine with a brilliance that nothing can dim. For those 48 Filipino kids, the stage was never just a place to perform, it was a place to be seen, to be heard, and to inspire. And as they sat together that night, recounting every note, every smile, every tear, they understood something profound. They had not only touched the hearts of millions around the world, but they had also discovered the magic within themselves. It was a magic that could not be extinguished, a light that could not be hidden, a song that would echo forever. The curtain fell on their performance, but the world knew this was only the beginning. The entire theater, the judges, and millions watching from afar had witnessed something extraordinary. A group of 48 Filipino children had created pure magic, not just on a stage, but in the hearts of everyone who had the privilege of listening. And for that, the world would never forget them.